Hi, it's Cassie, and today I'm going to be talking about what I read in February and then telling you what I'm going to be reading in March. The first book I read in February I did not like, and it's called Women Talking by Miriam Toews, and I did not enjoy reading this book. The ending kind of redeemed it for me, but the rest of the book just was not really worth it in my opinion. And before going in, reading all the synopsis and all the reviews online for this book, I was like kind of excited. I thought it was going to be a really good story. What happened in real life is that there was a Mennonite colony in South America where the women over a period of years were being attacked overnight, and they were told that it was the devil doing it, that it was their sin that was causing this. They would wake up with bruises and they would wake up bleeding and not remembering what happened and not knowing why they had all these injuries. And it turns out that the men of the colony were drugging them and raping them overnight, and they didn't know about it for years. And that sounded like a story that I'd be really interested in reading. But the biggest issue with this book is that it's not about the story and it's not about the attacks as a whole. This narrator that we have is taking notes on a meeting that the women are having about whether they should stay in the colony or whether they should leave the colony. And I just found that to be a boring perspective, and I found that to be not really the story that I was looking for. You get a lot of the narrator's perspective on things, you get a lot of his thoughts and feelings, and he has his own kind of storyline and his own story arc that makes sense at the very end of the book. But throughout the entire story, we're not getting any insight into the attacks or these women or what's going on. And there are things that happen in the story, and there, especially in the last like 50 pages or so, there is a series of events that happens fairly quickly that kept me reading, but I just did not find it my particular style. If you really, really enjoy metaphor and you really like storytelling and parables and you like not knowing everything about a story, maybe you would like this book, but I did not like it as a reader, so 2 out of 5. The next book that I read, of course I did, is The Silent Patient by Michaelides, and everybody loves this book. Everybody's been talking about this book. Every person on the planet has read this book. I rated it 3 out of 5. So The Silent Patient, if you don't already know, is about a woman who murders her husband, and she was a painter. She loved her husband. She seemingly had this great life, and then she, out of nowhere, murders her husband. And the book is written from the perspective of a psychotherapist who is working with her to try and get her to speak about her experience, because after she murders her husband, she goes completely silent. And I will say that I blew through this book so fast. I read it so fast. It was maybe a few days, which is really quick for me. And there was constant action. There was constant momentum in the story. There was nowhere in the story that I just kind of took a step back and was bored. I was not bored by the story at all. I found it very interesting, lively, and fun. It was a really, really fun read. I just don't really like mysteries or thrillers that much, and so it really was just a personal opinion. I don't love mystery thrillers or murder mysteries. It's just not really my thing. If you do like murder mysteries, you will love this book. It has a really nice twist at the end. Of course it does have a really nice twist at the end. It has a lot of quick moving action broken up by slower moments to the story. You get a lot of insight to Alicia, who is the woman who murders her husband. You get a lot of dialogue from the other characters, lots of clues. I didn't love the book, but I liked the book. So 3 out of 5. It's really fun if you like mystery, thriller, murder books. If you don't like murder mystery, or maybe you haven't read any before, this is still a really good book to get into. It is a lot of fun. I had a good time reading it. It's just not my genre of choice. The third book that I read, and my favorite book that I read this month, was The Devil All the Time by Donald Ray Pollock. And this book was a 5 out of 5 star read for me. I loved it, but it's not a book that I can recommend to just anybody. I searched BookTube. I tried to find reviews of this book and I came up with almost nothing, and that made me really sad because this is a book that I'd recommend to anybody who really loves to read and loves contemporary, gritty, violent kind of novels. There's a lot of smaller characters who all kind of make up this really interesting and weird cast that the book is made up of, and I really liked it. We talked about it in the book club this morning, and it was really divided half and half. You either really liked it or you really didn't. I found that there was a vein of humor and irony throughout this whole story. Not to say that it was a funny book, but it had this sense of ironic consequence to each of the characters' stories. This isn't a book that would make you laugh. This isn't really a book that would make you cry either.
Do you think that there's a type of person for whom it would be unhealthy to read this book?
I think this book could be triggering if you have certain types of trauma in your life. I would not recommend this to somebody who's in an emotionally sensitive place right now, but if you like books that aren't really wrapped up in a bow, if you like books that every character is somewhat or wholly unlikable, then you'll probably like this one. This is not a story that is easily discussed because there is violence and murder and rape and vulgarity, and there's lots of awfulness, lots of morally depraved characters who do very clearly immoral things, and I really liked it. There are smarter people out there who could describe it better than I could, but I really enjoyed this book. Now I'm going to show you what I'm going to read in March, and I'm going to talk about those books. So those are The Hidden Girl and Other Stories by Ken Liu, Junk, Digging Through America's Love Affair with Stuff by Alison Stewart, and Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. I'm going to start with the one that I've already started reading, which is Junk. This book I think is going to be a good one for spring cleaning and just learning about stuff. I'm already this much through it, so about a quarter of the way through it, and I am finding it to be a bit of a slower read right now. I find her writing to be a little bit dry for me. So this book is about junk and hoarding, what makes junk different from trash, which is different from stuff, which is different from collections. So it's all about America's love affair with all of this stuff that we have, why we have it, why we keep it, why we get rid of it. I think this one's just going to be a little bit slower of a read based on what I've already read. It might take me a little while to get through it, but I am bookmarking some things in it that I would like to talk about. So that's book number 1. Book number 2 that I'm reading is Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. I have read this book already, and it is excellent. I really, really like this book. I enjoyed it the first time I read it. So this is the pick for the Cincinnati book club that I'm a part of, and this book is amazing. I would recommend this book to anybody. Anybody can read it. It's not a particularly difficult read when it comes to the writing style, and it's not a super long book, but this book is difficult to read because of the subject matter. And this is a really, really really poignant and interesting look at racism in America as well as racism in Africa. I really enjoyed it. I think that rereading it will refresh my perspective on race in America, and what racism looks like and how we got to the point where we're at now with racism in America. So this I would recommend to everybody. I love it and really looking forward to rereading that. The last book that I'm reading in March, and that is The Hidden Girl and Other Stories by Ken Liu. And I cannot wait to read this. I'm so excited. It just released a few days ago. And Ken Liu is one of my all-time favorite authors. I am obsessed with his first collection of short stories. I have read it and recommended it to everybody that I know, and it is so much fun to read as somebody who loves science fiction and fantasy, and I cannot wait to get into this. So The Hidden Girl and Other Stories is another collection of short stories, and it also includes a novelette, which is just like a tiny novel. It's exactly what it sounds like, and it includes an excerpt from the next book in his Dandelion series. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. His first collection, which is The Paper Menagerie and Other Stories, is very much a science fiction, fantasy lover's dream. I found each story to be very moving in its own way, and then the title story, which is The Paper Menagerie, was incredible, and it really pulled at my heartstrings in all the right ways. It made me sad and hopeful at the same time. I loved it. So I'm really hoping that all of the stories in The Hidden Girl and Other Stories are just as evocative of emotion and the human experience and the ways that we use technology and the ways that we interact with each other. So I'm really excited about that one. So this cannot wait. That's all I'm reading for March. The Hidden Girl and Other Stories by Ken Liu, Junk, Digging Through America's Love Affair with Stuff by Alison Stewart, and Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. I will definitely post a video review of all of these when I'm all done and let you know what I thought about them, and until next time, bye!